Good morning. Apologies. Technical errors means I'm a minute or two late, but thanks for joining me. Hello, my name's Rhiannon Morgan. Everyone calls me Ree. Thank you for joining me live on this day in half term. So I've got all the children home. Fingers crossed that they're all nice and happy and playing in the playroom just for a few minutes so I can chat to you guys about fussy eating, which is a topic that touches a lot of parents' lives, a lot, especially if, like me, you have children with autism. So if you are new around here, hi, my name's Rhiannon Morgan. Everyone calls me Ree. I have 4 children with autism, and we have battled with fussy eating through various degrees on and off over the years. And I would say that due to the strategies that we have used, touch wood, because things can always change, especially in neurospicy households. But due to the strategies that we've used, things have been pretty good. Most of my children, in fact, all of my children, eat very well now. And in fact, the one child that was the most problematic with eating now eats the best, I would say, and is a really good eater, to the point where, and I'm talking about Will. If you've watched my other videos, Will, Wikipedia, who knows everything about theme parks, he went from being the fussiest toddler, probably till he was about 5, um, to now eating. If we go to a restaurant, he will eat the weirdest thing on the menu. If there is something peculiar, if there's a bizarre combination, that is what he will now choose. So I'm going to share today some of the things that we've done to go from being the fussiest eater in the whole world, and I'm not exaggerating here. So we did, but just a little bit of a brief overview of what we went through, of how things were before I share some of the strategies, just to show you exactly how much this stuff really has changed our lives for the better, just to make things easier. So we did baby-led weaning, and he was pretty good. Like, he ate most things during the baby-led weaning phase, and then things just narrowed down and down and down. I think, let me know in the comments if you're watching live, by the way, or indeed if you're watching on replay. In fact, say hi if you're watching live, or hit pop replay in the chat if you're watching on replay, or maybe you're listening on the podcast episode. If you do want to join the chat, head over to YouTube and you can join the chat and comment over that if you're listening to the podcast episode and you kind of want to just join in the chat. Anyway, he if you have experienced this, let me know, but often get a child that eats reasonably well, and then things just narrow and narrow and narrow. Things drop off the things they're willing to eat, and the safe food list becomes really narrow. And Will got to this stage where he would literally eat the same breakfast, the same lunch, and the same dinner every day, to the point where we went on a touring caravan holiday to France, and I had to take food with me because there was nothing I could buy out and about. He wouldn't eat like normal kiddie food, in inverted commas. He wouldn't eat, and obviously if you've got a child that will only eat sort of the beige, the chips, the plain pasta, whatever, that comes with its own challenges. And I'm sure you're very worried about, they're not eating a bigger variety of food and things. But I was just at the stage where I was like, please, will you just eat something that I can buy you when we're at the house, so that if we're out longer than anticipated, then I can feed you. Because I would panic that if we were out of the house for too long and I hadn't brought the exact food in the exact shape that he would eat it, then he'd just starve. So this was a real worry. He'd eat the same. It was reasonably balanced and nutritious, so I wasn't worried about him not getting the right stuff, because there was plenty of fruit and veg in it, there's protein, all the right things. But it was just this like one dinner that he would only eat this hidden veg pasta. So there was veg in it, there was chicken in it, it was all pureed up together to make the sauce. So it had everything in it, but it was only that one. So I couldn't find any other pasta. It had to be the same shapes. I used to buy the multicolored pasta, so it was the red, the green, the white pasta, and it had to be that. And obviously you can buy that in a restaurant. It was problematic. Anyway, through going through these stages and these very incremental steps, he's now that child that will eat everything. And I just, one very quick sort of note before we head into this about the differences between neurotypical children and children with autism. And this was something that I had a conversation with the very amazing consultant who did his assessments and things. And when I was on the phone to her before the assessment, I went over roughly what was going on generally in his whole life and why I was sort of suspecting autism. And she said, yeah, look, we're probably looking at autism here, so we'll do the assessment. I said, look, quickly before you get off the phone, what do I do about eating and food with him for now? I mean, I've had advice just put food in front of him, and if he's hungry, he'll eat, and just keep trying things, and what do I do? Do I just do this, keep putting food in front of him and saying and just sticking with it? Do I persevere? What do I do? And she said, look, for a neurotypical child who doesn't have any other like mental health issues or any other physical issues, then if you just keep presenting them with food, then eventually they wouldn't starve themselves. Whereas a child with autism might just starve themselves. So don't do that. So just so that was not good advice to just, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, and eventually they'll eat. It's just that's not the route we went down, the kind of the battling the dig the heels in. So this is a lot more sort of gently, gently, softly, softly stuff. And we are going to talk about a little bit about eating and disordered eating. So it's a little trigger warning, just before we go ahead. So first of all, something that we do in our house is frame food in a healthy way. So having been born in the 80s, growing up very much in the 90s, let me know if, like me, you grew up with very unhealthy relationship with food, with body weight. And it's something that I think most people my age, I'm 41, has struggled with at some point. We had very negative messaging around food. So I was brought up very much with the messaging from family, from the world, from the media, from everyone, like, skinny is good. And it was the very supermodel, very skinny. But then equally, food was used as a reward, as an if you're sad, put food on it. So I think it was very conflicting messaging. And I'm very aware with how I talk to my children about food that I don't want that for them. And I think intuitive eating is what we all want to kind of aim for. And if everyone is able to, in this ideal world, eat what their body needs and eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full, then everyone's going to have a much healthier relationship with food and healthier bodies and, all the things. So we frame food not as good foods or bad foods or, main foods. And then if you eat your main food, you get a treat for dessert, because I think that labeling foods as good or as bad can be quite unhealthy. And ultimately, if you've ever looked into diets, diet culture, all that kind of thing, as soon as something is like you're not allowed it, or it's kind of put on a pedestal of good foods, bad foods, then you can end up craving the bad foods. And food shouldn't be a reward for eating other food. It shouldn't be a reward for doing something that's good. It shouldn't be weaponized. If some, it shouldn't be like, oh, you were, I think we were, you were naughty, you can't have dessert, that kind of thing. Food shouldn't be weaponized. It shouldn't be used as a trick. Anyway, so the way that we work around this is we talk about food for fuel versus food for fun. So my children enjoy being very active. They do karate, the girls do dancing. So what I try and say to them is there are certain foods that give us really good fuel. And they really fuel our bodies to do all the things that we want to do. They fuel our bodies, like my children love theme parks. They fuel our bodies to be able to like run around theme parks, and they give us like a slow and steady energy. So we're not going to feel like, ugh, we're not going to have a big crash. And then there's just food that's for fun. So food for fun would be, desserts, sweets, treats, things like that. So they don't give us a load of energy, but they're just for fun. They're food. They're just because, they're food for fun. I think that explains it. So by framing it as these two different things, like these foods, the foods for fun aren't bad foods. They're just not going to give us the really great fuel we need to do all the fun things we want to do. And I think that that's a nice way of framing it, to not villainize certain foods, but also just be able to discuss things, because you need to be able to have a dialogue with your children about food. And I think a lot of the way that we talk about food can be a large part of the problem, which we are going to get into in a second. By the way, if you are inside of my Organised Life Club, I am doing a full workshop at the beginning of June. I should have pulled that up actually before starting. Like I said, I was running a little bit late. Sorry, I've got the children and I'm at home. Don't know if you can tell from my voice, my tonsils are massive. If anyone's had experience of having their tonsils taken out as an adult, I'm seriously considering going down that route because the number of times I get ill with tonsil related things in a year is insane. So yeah, if anyone has any experience with tonsils or how to stop them flaring up and make you terribly ill, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear that. But yeah, next week I think it's next week, I am doing a workshop inside of the Organised Life Club. It's next module in our Organised Life system. We did this month in May, so the replays are in there if you haven't caught it yet. The routine assessment, we'll be looking at different areas of our lives. And in the mealtime routine workshop, we're going to be looking at all of the things surrounding mealtimes, because I know as a mum myself, mealtimes can be super stressful. So we're going to be going in a lot more depth about the things that we're talking about today and how we can implement routine that works for the whole family, everything from meal plans, we're not wasting food, we're not wasting money, all the kind of things. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I just wanted to, while my ADHD brain remembered that, make sure I told you about it. All the details of how to join should be down in the description. If you go to mummy4.com/join, then that should be there for you. Okay, so food for fuel, food for fun. It's just part of that dialogue that is a good way to talk to your children about food. But then another thing we've done that's really helped fussy eaters, and this is especially that probably not as relevant so much if you've only got one child, but if you've got more than one child, is we're not allowed to talk about food at the table. Okay. This might seem a bit of a weird tip, but bear with me, okay? So what tends to happen is my children, I think this is pretty standard for siblings, they're either best of friends or they're needling each other constantly and battling. So if one of them has a food that they're not that fussed on and they start going, oh, I don't like it, I don't like it, it might put the other children off, okay? So we don't discuss the actual food at the table for that reason. But also on the flip side, if one of them has, if we've got a meal that one of them does like and the other one perhaps doesn't like, the one that does like it might get on, oh, this is so nice, I really like this, which really winds up the one that's struggling because they don't like it as much. So by just saying, look, we can discuss things at the table, obviously not with food in our mouths. We try and encourage good behavior and good table manners from that point of view, but we try and talk about things that are not food at the table, and we can discuss food, definitely. We can definitely talk about food, but we're not talking about the food we're eating at the time we're eating it, because I've just found between the children, it just causes this massive conflict. Let me know in the comments if you found the same, and just try it. Try that as a rule. Try it for a week. Any of this stuff, just try it a bit and see how it kind of works out for you. Apologies, my voice is sounding very peculiar, and the more I talk, the weirder it's sounding. For that, I have taken day nurse. Hopefully, that will kick in soon, and I won't sound so odd. Okay, so talking to the children a little bit more now, and again, we'll get more into like fussy eating tips. This is sort of foundational stuff. A little bit more about listening to our bodies and hunger cues. So intuitive eating is something I honestly no, I'd never heard about intuitive eating until I was an adult, and I feel that it's something that I strive for. And if this is something we can teach our children to do from from childhood, they're going to have a healthier relationship with food. They're far less likely to suffer with disordered eating, either overeating or undereating or anything, because they just know that food isn't the enemy. It's there to, oh, sorry, touch the microphone, making weird noises probably. Food's there to sustain us. Food is there to support us. But also, if we eat too much food or not enough food, our bodies are going to feel yucky. And I think all of my children at some point have felt that feeling of both of those things. And so we talk to them and try and say like, how much, am I allowed this, am I allowed that at the table? It's like, right, I'm trying to say to them, just listen to your body. And we say, do you remember that feeling where you're so hungry, it just like your tummy hurts? Like, I don't think my children have ever been that hungry, if I'm honest. Like, they say they've been that hungry, but they get fed so regularly, I don't think they've ever experienced true hunger, which is a very blessed position to be in. But say to them, when you feel very hungry, that doesn't feel very nice, does it? So we want to make sure that we don't let ourselves get that hungry in between eating. Again, if your children are fed at kind of regular intervals with like routine and things, then that's very unlikely to happen. But also, do you remember that time? And I think it's probably only happened once ever to each of them. But do you remember that time when you ate too much and you're lying on the sofa and you're like, my tummy hurts so much? We don't want to feel like that, do we? So we don't want to feel the really empty, really starving feeling. We don't want to feel the really overstuffed feeling. So if we eat our food, you know, at a sensible rate, so we're not like shovel it in. We eat our food, we know chew our food nicely, and we listen to our bodies as we're eating. And if we're not sure, if we're full, we take a little pause and we let our brains catch up with our tummies and say, how is my tummy feeling? Because we don't want to feel overstuffed, but we don't want to feel starving. So we just want to eat to the point where we feel comfortable and then we stop. And so then, like for example, perhaps we'll put like some like biscuits or something out for dessert. I'll say to the children, here you go, you've eaten your food for fuel, here's some food for fun. And they say, how many am I allowed? So we'll have one if that's what you, and then listen to your tummy. Like, is that something that you're going to feel comfortable with? Are you going to feel overstuffed? Because you don't want to feel like that. That feels horrible. The biscuits might be yummy, but that overstuffed feeling is horrible. So just try and intuitively listen to your body. And there's always plenty more food. It's not a case of, well, once this is gone, it's gone. Or what if I'm starving? Because I think there's this element of like, well, if I don't eat enough now, will I be hungry later? I think if we can erase that from the conversation of like, well, if you don't eat now, you're going to be hungry later. It's like, well, if you don't eat enough, it's okay. You could always have something later. You could always have a snack later if it's a problem. And remove this kind of panic that surrounds food, this scarcity mindset, because I know when the scarcity mindset comes in, that's when people tend to overeat. Now, I know a lot of you here are thinking, right, well, actually, I think we're talking about fussy eating and under eating and things. I am, but I do feel that this is very important to bring to the conversation because it's foundational stuff about the way that we're having a positive conversation around food. Okay, so on to some more things that you may think are a little bit more relevant. I think it's important to bear in mind everything I've said because that stuff is very sort of foundational. It's forming the basis around how we want our children to grow and have relationships with food. Because I guarantee that even those of you here who are like my children are really, really fussy eaters, they will have some foods, I'm sure, perhaps foods you're not so keen on having, that they'd be very keen to eat and eat and eat. Do let me know down in the comments below. I'll have a quick look at the comments before we move on to the next point. Do let me know down in the comments if you are struggling with fussy eating at the moment. So Sharon's hello from Sydney, Australia. Catherine, hello. Good morning. Good to know you have a well-balanced diet. Excellent. Kay Louise says, my daughter was, when she was 7, would only eat hard-boiled eggs and soldiers made by her dad. She's such a limited diet, and even now at 18. Her safe food is rice, crispy, and will eat it all the time. Yeah, so a lot of kids will have these very, very narrow diets. So we're going to talk now a little bit how to introduce new foods in a way that is not going to get everyone's walls up. It's not going to cause so much stress. Gemma says that all 3 of my children are autistic and 2 of them have very limited diets. I think it's so, so common. Okay, so a few things that worked really, really well for us. Routine, again, we're going to talk about this a lot more in the workshop about routine and meal planning and things. But if you've seen any of my vlogs about meal planning or routine or anything, I've got an organisation station up in the kitchen where you can write on. So they're kind of boards. They're actually printables put inside photo frames, and then you can write on the photo frames, the A4 photo frames. If you go to mummyoffour.com/organisation station, then I will pop that in the chat actually. mummyoffour.com/organisation station. Hopefully, mummy for goodness, mummyoffour.com. There we go. /organisation station. There we go. Put that in the chat. If you go to that, then that will take you to the printables and things, and you can actually see what I've got up in my kitchen. And you can download those printables for free. If they're not already inside of my Organised Life Club, I'll put them in there just as soon as I get off this live. Actually, I'll make a quick note to do that, otherwise I will forget. Jotting this down in the brain dump section of my planner. If you stay tuned to the end, I will show you my newest version of this, which I am so pleased with. I'm just finishing this plan. I've got another few this last month in this one, and then we're using the Organised Life Planner 2.0. I'm just absolutely thrilled with it, honestly. I'll show you at the end. Anyway, we put the meal plan up on the wall, and this helps my children with autism specifically. They know what's coming, and they just deal with things so much better when things are predictable. And when they know what's coming, they just seem happier. They don't like surprises. My children, like, they adore Disney trips, like, adore, 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 adore. But I've said to them, some people pick their parents up, their children up from school rather, and then they're like, "Hey, we're going to Disney today. Would you like that?" And they're like, "Mummy, please do not do that to us." They love Disney, but they would hate that. And that's just highlights just the preference for predictability. So having the meal plan up on the wall, they know what's coming. Before, it's not like a case of surprise, here's your dinner, it's put in front of them, and they're like, "Oh, I got, I wasn't prepared for this." They know what's coming each day. If you've got children that are not yet able to read, you could do this with pictures. You could take photos of meals as you make them, and then you could stick them up. You could put Velcro on the back and like create a little meal plan with photos, with pictures that they've drawn. You can create a visual meal plan that you can put up on the wall or show them, or you could just put like the next meal that's coming up somewhere that they can see it, and that is more likely to make them more comfortable. The next thing you can do, of course, is involve them in meal planning. You can make your pretend restaurant and be like, okay, so what we're going to put on the menu for the restaurant tonight. Make it a game. Anything you can gamify is going to just make your children far more engaged in the meals. You can say, right, okay, at the restaurant tonight, we're going to have this. Which options can we have? And sometimes a this or that option, rather than like a whole overwhelming menu, but would you like, okay, we're going to have this tonight. Would you like your pasta to be twists or tubes? And then perhaps, even if they're not that fussed on it, they're going to choose one over the other. And it gives them some autonomy over what they're picking. And they're far more likely to just actually eat it if they think they've had some choice in it. So that's really, really helpful. Involving them in making the meals. Now, if you I'm not suggesting get your children to cook everything from scratch. However, if they feel they've had some ownership in preparing something, they're far more likely to eat it. So one of the things we did with Will, he would not eat pizza. And you're thinking, oh, he ate healthy food. What does it matter? But I was just so at the end of my tether. I just wanted to be able to go away without having to take food with me, because it was a case of we couldn't have flown anywhere because I wouldn't have been able to take the food. Like, I used to literally take frozen batches of this pasta I'd made because it was the only thing he'd eat, and it was quite a time. It was a challenging time. So the way we got to eat pizza was we made the pizzas together. So he was physically putting the toppings on. I think initially I just bought bases, but I tell you what works really, really well is just using wraps. I don't do it so much anymore. Perhaps I should go back to doing that, but wraps as pizza base. I mean, you can make your full on own pizza bases and things, but there's also an element of, as a parent, I think if too much energy has gone into preparing a meal and then it's rejected by your children, that can be incredibly stressful too, because you're like, I worked so hard on this and they won't even try it. So sometimes taking some shortcuts or batch making meals. So if you're going to make a meal and then you're going to freeze certain portions of it, and you're going to introduce this meal to your child over and over and over again, because I read somewhere 7 apparently is the magic number. You have to try something 7 times to know you really don't like it. I Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the number I have stuck in my head. But if you are making something and you've made it all from scratch and then they reject it and then it all goes in the bin, that can feel like it can feel really disheartening. Whereas if you've made something like, okay, well, I've made 7 portions of this, and we're going to try it the 7 times. And if they don't like it this time, maybe they'll like it. It's 7 meals you've cooked for. That anything you can do to take the pressure off you, because ultimately the energy you're bringing to mealtime is going to contribute to how your children view mealtimes and therefore how they react to new foods that are introduced. So if you're going into mealtimes believing it's going to be stressful, believing it's going to be awful, believing they're not going to eat anything, you are naturally going to be tense and your children are going to pick up on that. So even if your words are saying everything's fine, the the energy behind that really won't go unnoticed. So I think as much as if we can work on our mindset of thinking, right, my children are safe, my children are fed. Are they, maybe they're not eating as wide a variety of foods as I'd like them to eat at the moment, but as long as they are happy and healthy, everything else is a bonus. If we can introduce new things slowly and they actually respond to any of them, amazing. But if not, that's okay. And if we can know that in our hearts and believe that and be like, look, whatever happens, they're going to be okay, they're safe. Because ultimately, as parents, all we want our children to do, our like natural instincts is, are they okay? If we can be like, right, okay, they're okay, they're safe. We can get out of that fight or flight mode that we can get so stuck in this modern day world. Our brains are still wired the same way as they were when we were cave people and we were out in the, living, potentially going to get attacked by animals. And I think anytime anything happens, our bodies still go into this like fight or flight of like, oh, it's such a negative thing. Our bodies are flooded with cortisol. And then this energy will, that's what we bring to these situations with our children. If we can just kind of diffuse that and just know it's okay, whatever happens, it's okay. If they eat it, it's okay. If they don't eat it, it's okay. And the more chilled and laid back we can be going into this, the more pressure we can take off our children, the more likely they are to actually eat things. So, if you can get our children to make things with you, to make the dinner, to help choose the menus on the weekends. So, I do meal planning on the weekends, and I largely get ignored by my husband and children, to be honest. But so like say, is anything anyone would like specifically this week on meal plan? And then I do the meal plan. Again, I'll go through all of that in the workshop that we're doing inside the Organised Life Club. But I'll go through the exact meal planning system. But if you can talk to your family and say, like, any suggestions you'd like on the meal plan, and that way you've ordered in all the bits and pieces to make those meals, and then you can put those meals on your meal plan, everyone can see it, and you can put it on the menu up in the kitchen, and that's just going to bring the stress levels down a little bit. So, removing pressure completely. I know I was told that, come on, try it for me, just one more bite. And this kind of this kind of narrative of, oh, go on, push, 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 just try it, just try it, just try it, just try it. Blah, 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 blah. It just makes everyone go, oh no, and like it just makes people recoil. Okay, I think we need to take this pressure off with the words that we're using, and also if let our children know that like it's okay to try things, and if you don't like it, that's fine. Now, for me, for trying things, I would suggest a very gradual introduction process and only ask your children to try things that are also married up with safe foods. So, if there are always going to be safe foods available for your children to eat, what I would suggest is if you want to introduce a new meal, you don't go, here is a brand new meal full of things you've never tried before and nothing at all you're comfortable with. If your child loves pasta, then introducing something small alongside that is far more likely to go well than just no pasta in sight and all brand new things. You know what I mean? So always make sure there are safe foods. And then when you're introducing new foods, the first thing I tend to do, or tended to do, especially when there was more and they just wouldn't eat much at all, is actually just eat things in front of them. And sometimes children are so curious. They're like, oh, what's that? Like, oh, yeah, just, and you're just like clearly enjoying your food without discussing it too much, obviously, because we're not supposed to discuss food at the table, but clearly enjoying your food. Sometimes, if you're not offering them something at all, they're more likely to want to try it. Another great thing that we do is then put food in the middle. So after you put something on your plate, or just put food in the middle. If you have salad bowl always available in the middle of the table, this is something. I mean, I generally will eat it now, so often I'll just put it straight in their plates. But what I used to do was just put salad available in the middle, so salad leaves, chopped up bits of cucumber, chopped up bits of pepper, whatever else, then that's something they can kind of pick at while they're waiting for their food to come out. And that's just adding goodness to their plates. They have the choice of how much they want to add to their plates. And I find my kids eat salad really, really well now. Just generally from this introducing it in the middle kind of system. And then when you do want them to try things, introduce it in such a gradual way, as in sometimes maybe you could have just the food in the middle and then their food. And if they want to take some, fine. If not, the next stage from there is you can have a tasting plate at the side. So you can have their main plate with their safe food on it, and then the food that you'd like them to try, put on the side. So it's not even on their plate. And if you can get them to consent to just having it near them, even if they don't try it, that can be a small win. And that in itself, if you can start getting your children to go to consent to having food they're not comfortable with, they haven't tried before near them, you're already making steps. Next step from there, if you can get them to consent to having food on their plate, do they have to try it? They don't necessarily have to try it, they can try it if they want to. They have it on their plate, not touching the other food. But if you can get them to agree to have it on their plates and be like, that's great, well done. You've got it on you have it on the plate, try it, don't try it, whatever. Just have it on your plate. But sometimes that can be a win. Just getting your child to have something that is new on their plate and they're not having a meltdown, huge win. Huge, it starts to be celebrated. Like, well done. So eat it, don't eat it, whatever. Then from there, maybe just get them to try a small amount, or maybe the next stage is just get them to have something with touching their food. So perhaps on the fork they have a little bit of pasta, but then a bit of sweet corn with it, and they're trying it together. Um, and just incrementally introducing little bit more. And then maybe next time it's like, okay, well, we'll just have a little bit of that with your food. Maybe next time from there, they just eat more and more and more. Maybe you have a little tally chart of things you've tried, how many different foods have we tried? How many times have we tried them? I have put together, see if it's here. I've put together that's my routine assessment. So I've got the pair. If you're inside my All Eyes Live Club, this is I haven't uploaded this yet, but if you're watching this on replay, then you may have this um already. So this is the parents' mealtime routine resources, and this has got all the different things to work through. We'll be going through all of this in the workshop about family rules, family food for fuel for fun, all the different printables and things you're going to need to navigate this entire system. So if you go to mummyoffour.com/join and join the Automated Love Club, that's in there for you. I'm also working on later, which will be ready hopefully by the 1st of June, the kids printable resources, where kids can like tally up different things they've tried, and then tick off how many different times they've tried them. And then maybe at the end of that, when they've completed a certain amount of ticks or things, perhaps you can go and do a fun thing, something to work towards. Like I say, gamifying it really, really, really helps. So we're being careful with our language around food. We're not forcing anything. We're gradually introducing things in and really letting our children know that it's fine. Try things, don't try things. We're taking the pressure off. But it's really great and exciting to try new things. And if you've ever got your child to try something that they previously wouldn't eat, then that's a good thing to refer back to. It's like, hey, do you remember, like how baked beans are your favorite food now? There was a time where you wouldn't even try baked beans and you didn't know you'd like them. And imagine like you never would have, and now you love them. So, let's explore and be like a treasure hunter of maybe finding our next favorite food, or maybe finding combinations of foods that maybe you're not so fast on onions when they're raw, but do you like them when they're cooked, and gamifying, which is better, which one tastes better, does it taste better with this or without, cooked or raw? There's lots of different angles that you can look at taking to just make the whole thing more fun, more lighthearted, and more of a game. One thing that's really, really, really helped my children with trying things is watching other people. So, a few different ways that this has helped. So, school dinners, if you can get your children to eat school dinners, now this may seem like a million miles off for some of you, but if you can get your children to eat school dinners, then honestly, they will probably try things in school that they never would have eaten for you at home. Our eldest started eating things in school that because he was quite a traditional limited eater, and he preferred kiddie food and not so much of the he struggled more with like fruits and veggies and just I can remember him coming home saying he'd had korma in school. I was like, wow, he's like I can make you korma now. Wow, that's amazing. Whereas previously he wouldn't have eaten that kind of thing. So school dinners are amazing. I mean, for Will, I was very, very lucky, and I always advocate having a really good relationship with the teachers in school. And if you can talk to the teachers and really get them on side. But there was an amazing teacher that took him into the dinner hall and really helped kind of introduce him to all of that. And he tried so many more things when he did school dinners. Now, watching, if you've got, especially if you've got quite little kids, watching certain programs really might help. So if you have got your kids have got like a favorite TV character and they like a certain food, then that is just a really good, so and so really likes bananas that give him strength for, I don't know, whatever characters. I'm not sure what. Bluey's the newest thing, isn't it? My children are too old for Bluey, so I've not seen Bluey. Does Bluey eat a certain type of food? If Bluey loves a certain type of food, or then that might be a really good way in. Trying new things. There was one of the programs that was always quite good for showing new things generally was Woolly and Tig, which I'm not even sure that's on BBC anymore. That's, if your child needs to go to the dentist or whatever. There was always an episode where there's a little girl and then Spider came along and told her, anyway, it's probably tells us it's not that bad and you should try things. Let me know if you've ever seen that. If not, have a look at. I'm sure that's probably on YouTube, maybe BBC iPlayer. Peppa Pig is normally quite good for episodes for examples of trying new things generally in life. There'll be an episode about going to the airport, an episode about going to the dentist, but about trying foods. I mean, I guess your kid's favorite character doesn't necessarily have to have eaten that thing in an episode. But you can be like, hey, Dougie loves spaghetti bolognese or whatever. And then perhaps your child's favorite cuddly toy has told you that they love that type of food. Just involving characters, it can really, really help. I know that helped us a lot. If your children are a little bit older, watching vlogs can really, really help. So my kids, obviously, like we're big Disney fans, they love watching vlogs about parks. And then obviously vloggers will try to show different foods on the menu, try different things, and then they're like, oh, I want to go there, I want to try that thing. And now if you've watched our Disney vlogs, try all the different snacks in the parks. We normally just buy like one of things. We buy one of one snack or one of each type of snack, and everyone tries a bit of this and everyone tries a bit of that rather than just get one thing and then waste it. And I feel that that takes the pressure off a little bit as well when there's more like kind of a picky trying it kind of vibe where it's not a case of, well, I'm buying you this one thing, and then if you don't like it, it's going in the bin. It's like, well, we'll buy this, and everyone try a bit of this, and we'll buy this, and everyone try a bit of this, and everyone gets to try lots of different things. And that, again, really just takes the pressure off. But if your kids are not big on trying things, get them to watch vlogs. You can watch our Disney vlogs, other vlogs of people trying things. And I know I've had lots of messages from people saying that, hey, my fussy eater now wants to go and try whatever thing that one of my kids has tried in one of the Disney parks. And that's great to know that that has really helped. So visual routines and consistency. So eating, again, we're going to talk about this a lot in the mealtime routine workshop, but eating at the same times and at the same place can really help. Now, at the moment, maybe your child won't sit to the table at all and they're not eating at the same times. And if there's no routine at all, then if your child has autism, especially, that's going to be really difficult for them. But also, it's going to be really confusing for their body. So if you always eat at the same time, you'll probably notice your body will start to get hungry and start to expect food at that time. So even if you're not necessarily aware of the time, even if your child can't tell the time, if they are used to eating at a certain time, they are likely to be more hungry at those times, and then they are likely to be more receptive to actually eating because they are hungry. Equally, if a child is too hungry and they've got over to the stage of hangry, then they're not going to be receptive to trying anything at all because they're going to have just gone beyond that point of no return. So having those set times where you eat hopefully together, ideally at a table. Again, we'll talk about a lot more about I could talk endlessly about how we can sort of finesse these routines and get children into a routine of eating where you'd like them to eat rather than all over the house or maybe in front of the TV. Um, um, but if you can get your children to regularly eat at the same time, I understand that this can be really challenging if you've got work schedules that are difficult. Like we have certain nights of the week where we're not physically all in the house at the same time, but largely we aim to eat at the same time every night and we eat at the table. Eating at the table helps because, table manners, because we're actually able to listen to our bodies and a lot more on our food signals because we're not zoned out watching the TV. We are actually talking about our days and things. So eating at the table is really beneficial for that. But honestly, if my children just ate all over the house, I think we'd have mice. I don't think I'd be able to stay on top of the amount of cleaning that there would be because it would be a lot. And by just eating at the table, just it makes it so much easier to clear up. Ava says, I've got autism myself. However, my fussiness comes from sensory issues. I struggle with certain textures. Do you have any advice on how to expand what I eat? Yeah, Ava, I would just say that taking the pressure off things, and same advice probably for adults as children, and just think, right, these are my safe foods. I'm just going to add a small portion on the side of something else. And if I like it, great. If I don't, it's no big deal. I think when it feels like there are big consequences for trying something and not liking it, then that that can feel like a lot of pressure. For example, I mean, I think a lot of us are guilty of this in restaurants and things. I think if you don't go out for food that much, you're far more likely to order something you know you're going to like because I always personally find ordering like the wrong food and then having food envy of someone else's food, you're like, oh, gutted. I'm like, oh, the meal I ordered wasn't so good. I should have gone for that. And that's really annoying. However, if you are somewhere like a buffet or all inclusive, so say like I'm far more likely to order something a bit more weird and wonderful on a Disney cruise where I know that we're having amazing meals all week than if you are just going out for one special meal and you've paid for that meal and it feels like it's a waste if you're not going to eat it. So buffets from this point of view can be a really good way to try things because you can try a little bit of this, a little bit of that without the pressure. And in a buffet, you can like put something on your plate. If you don't like it, you can put that plate aside, you can get a fresh plate and you can start again. So if you are looking to eat out with your children, definitely look for buffet options or maybe, options where you can order tapas and order lots of different things to try because it really does take that pressure off. Because if you've just got that one meal and you've either made it or you've paid for it in a restaurant and then no one likes it and no one wants to try it, it's like, oh, it's so disheartening. Oh, what a waste. And I think that feeling of worrying about wasting things can add so much pressure. Whereas if it's the case of, hey, look, we're adding this on the side because we've picked it up in a buffet or because we're on a Disney cruise and there's always more food. And if I don't like this, I'll just go and get some deck food. It doesn't matter. Take that pressure right off. So again, maybe you can batch cook either the safe food and then you're just preparing the new food to go with it. And you've got that safe food as a backup if you don't like it, or you batch cook the food you want to try and just keep reintroducing it. And then you just have your safe food that goes alongside that. And I really feel that marrying up the safe food with the trying it food and taking that pressure right off is the system that's definitely worked for us. Ava says, yes, we're going on holiday this year. I love the buffets. I'm 16. I don't have children. However, it's good to hear what can help. Thank you so much. Well, hopefully, yeah, I think that will help. I know when I was very small and I have ADHD. I don't have autism, I have ADHD. So I'm not sure if that's relevant with us eating, but I was just really worried about trying things out and about out of the house because I was really worried that if and this is like it's a whole other level of like people pleasing and worrying about upsetting authority figures and all this kind of stuff. But I now know looking back, and I never want my children to feel like this, that I was worried if I tried something and I didn't like it, I'd be made to eat it all. Otherwise, I would upset people or offend people or whatever. So I really didn't like eating in other people's houses. I'd rather be hungry than to potentially accept something that I didn't like and have to eat it or offend people. And I think just knowing and really making our children comfortable and really knowing in ourselves that it's okay, like to try something, and if it's not for you, that's fine. And just being really comfortable with taking that pressure way off, and not if you're a kid and you've got someone going, try it, try it, try it, try it for me. Now, fuss, pick, 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 fuss, 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 tap, tap, that's really stressful. And if we can take that away, then they're going to be far more comfortable with opening up to trying things. So you could try having the plate on the side, and it's literally not touching the food, and then moving it closer and closer. And or you can just put it in the middle to start with, and then as your children are trying things, obviously, praise, like, well done for trying things, but also from a mindset point of view, we need to be making sure that our children also know that we love them regardless of what happens. It's like, look, if you want to try this, great. If you don't want to try it, that's fine. I love you and I'm proud of you, whatever, unconditionally. But if you can try this, then I think, it might be something that you are able to enjoy. Maybe you could try things all together. Everybody try something brand new. Or maybe it can be a case of preferences and you can bring things out and say, right, we've got two new things to try. Do we like this one or that one better? So maybe your children really like pasta and they only like, like a tomatoey sauce. Maybe we're going to try a pesto, and then we're gonna have our normal like tomatoey pasta they're comfortable with. But then in the middle, we're gonna also have a green pesto and a red pesto with the pasta, and have small portions of that. And we're gonna try that, and everyone's gonna be going, okay, which one we're gonna vote for? Which one do we like, this one better or that one better? You could make other games like blind testing, like what do we think this is? That might be a bit of a stretch for some children, but okay, so we're going to try blind testing. Do we think this one's the red pesto or the green pesto? And making a little game out of it. And if we can do this when we're not absolutely starving, but also we're not stuffed and full, and having that kind of middle ground is really, really going to help. So we've talked about getting the kids involved. I'm trying to see what else I've written down here, which to talk to you about. Getting them involved in the meal planning, getting them involved in preparing, getting them involved in like, laying the table and making it nice. It can be a case of, you know, the this is the restaurant. I think it's quite stressful when you've got to make lots of different meals and you end up feeling like a short order cook. And I know I felt like this at stages where my husband wouldn't eat the same food as the kids and the kids wouldn't eat the same food as each other. And I just felt like I was making five, six different meals every night. And it really stressed me out. So if you are there, I see you, I feel you, I've been there, it's no fun. But honestly, by taking these little incremental steps and knowing that this is not necessarily going to be an overnight fix, but you just need to keep chipping away at it. And just by changing everyone's mindset, changing the way you're doing things, does make such a difference over time. And maybe they're not, suddenly going to overnight eat all these new things. But if every week they tried one new thing and, like now they'll eat peas, or at least they've tried them, or now they'll eat sweet corn, or now you can get them to eat cucumber sticks on the side of their food. Uh, Anything that you can get them to add in, especially for the food for fuel, then brilliant. And then, of course, you can have food for fun testing sessions as well after meals. Like, okay, so what we're gonna pick for our trying things food for fuel today, and then what we're gonna try for our food for fun, and which one do we like? Does everyone think that, is everyone gonna like the little chocolate cake a bit more, or the little lemon cake? Which one? Let's guess which one's going to be the favorite, and then everyone tries it and review it. I always try and get my children, if you've watched our vlogs when we're traveling, to review and talk about what they're trying. Like what else was it similar to? What does it taste like? What do we what do we what does it compare to that we've tried before? And I know that I have now contradicted myself a little bit because I said that we don't talk about food at the table, but I think there's a big difference between here are meals that we're enjoying them, and then an active tasting session, which maybe you could try almost mid-meal. You could stop and do that. If you're doing it as an active tasting session, trying between this and this, or at a snack time where it's not in the middle of a meal, then I think that's very different to just children randomly going, I really like this, knowing their sibling hates it, or I don't like this is really sludgy, and then everyone else being like, oh, actually, I don't think I want mine now either. So differentiating between this is just mealtime, and we're sort of no pressure, adding things on the side, gently putting things on our plates, and then eating, and differentiating that from a fun tasting game session. Almost like that could be almost like a kitchen cooking session where you're doing the active trying, and is it going to be this one or that one, which one will be the winner, and or blind testing or anything. Keep that separate from meals where you're just trying to low pressure add a little bit of something new in. I hope that makes sense. um, Obviously, consistency with other things is really important when you are introducing new foods. So if they always have a certain cup, a certain plate, if all those things can stay the same, you can just add new things in. Great. If you're adding things in, same meal times, maybe your children always sit in the same seat at dinner, and just don't mix up too many other things, then that is probably going to be a really good idea. Equally, when you're away or when you're eating out at buffet type places, that might be a fun, engaging time to try new foods, as long as there are also safe foods available. So there's no one size fits all, obviously, and everyone's going to kind of be on their own journey. But I think what we ultimately have to realize is, as long as our children are happy and healthy, and they have enough nutrition, they're drinking plenty of water. My children do drink a lot of water. They've all got water bottles that they drink throughout the day. They only drink squash at the table. We have a jug of squash that we put on the table. It's like a no added sugar, just like a little bit double concentrate. I think they like the orange and mango or something from Sainsbury's. And we have jugs of squash at the table, and the rest of the time drinking plenty of water. And just really encouraging healthy habits, as in, water, we're mostly made up of water. Let's drink plenty of water. As long as they're drinking plenty, they are eating, then, same as you say to mothers of small babies, fed is best. Anything else is a bonus. So as long as they are thriving and growing and they're healthy, you're doing a good job. Okay. You're doing a good job. Do not stress. There's very, very few adults that still eat the very, very rigid diet that they ate as a kid. Even adults with autism generally won't eat such a very, very rigid diet that they ate as a child. Often, obviously, adults with autism will still have a more restricted diet than perhaps other neurotypical adults, but I don't know of anyone personally who still eats, like, for example, I was worried that Will would only eat these 3 meals that he was eating as a toddler for the rest of his life, and that just hasn't panned out like that. Over the years, he's naturally tried things, he's naturally expanded his diet incrementally, and he is just the poster child for all the stuff working. And ultimately, you just want your kids to be happy, you want them to be able to be fed as kids, to be able to buy them food if you are out of the house, something that will sustain them, so that they won't starve until you get home, and to be able to enjoy food and have a good relationship with it, and not push it into this battlefield, which it can sometimes get pushed into, which is really a negative place to be, where it's like, as soon as mealtime feels like a battle, it feels horrendous for the parents, it feels awful for the kids, and it's a recipe for an unhealthy relationship with food, either over or under eating, going into teen and adult years. So we don't want that. We just want to take the pressure right off, and just think about the language we're using around food. So it's not the villain, it's not a reward, it's just something that is there to support and sustain us. And if we can enjoy meal times by sitting together as a family and not discussing food and just chatting about our days, while no pressure, just adding in little bits of extra things to try as we go, then slow and steady, you'll be okay. So if you're struggling with this, I'm sending you big hugs. It is super stressful. I know that from personal experience. If you are not yet inside of my Organised Life Club, head to mummyoffour.com/join. The routine assessment action plan workshop is in there on replay already. I'm going to have a look on here for the date. I think it's next week. Is it next week? Sorry, I should have found this out before we came on live, shouldn't I? Oh right, it's on Tuesday, the 10th of June, so you've got a little bit of time. There will be the mealtime routine workshop where we're going in depth through this entire workbook. We're taking you through it step by step from everything from where we are now to where we'd like to be, everything about meal planning, about all the things, everything you're going to need to know to make meal times easier, because I know meal times for us now are pretty chill, in all fairness. Meal times no longer stress me out, but I was there where every single day I was like, "Oh my goodness, what are we gonna have for dinner today? Oh," and then I was buying a load of food, I was chucking out the food because it gone off, and it was a whole nightmare. So we're going through this entire parents workbook. In that workshop, there will be a replay if you can't make it live, but it's Tuesday, the 10th of June at 9:30 a.m. If you'd like to join in live, we'll go through all of that together. Also, tomorrow inside of the Organised Life Club, we are doing our monthly planning session. Hopefully my voice will have come back a little bit by then, where we're planning ahead for June. We're reflecting on May, seeing what we managed to do and achieve, setting our goals for June, what we want to achieve in all areas of our lives, the family, what we want to do around the house, work-wise, everything, and making sensible, realistic plans for how we're going to have a nice organized June, because ultimately the more organized and in control we feel, it buys us freedom, it buys us time, it buys us headspace, and we're going to be doing all of that together for accountability. So that is at 9:30 tomorrow morning. And then at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, I'm doing a live over on my Magical Adventures channel talking about all things Disney Cruise. So I'd love to see you over there too. Thank you so much for joining me. Next coming live on here next Thursday. What's the date? 29th. So I will see you. We've got another live next Thursday, the 5th at 9:30 on this channel. So I'll see you in some, if not all, of those places. Bye, guys.